You're like,
So this is I'm Rich Westman, the chair of Senate Transportation. This is Friday, January 24th. And we are here, with, Matt Cota, the Director of Government Affairs, and is in consulting for the Vermont Vehicle and Automobile Distributors, Association. If you could give us your name again and.
Thank you, Chair Wilson, members of the committee. Allow me to reintroduce myself to many of you. I own a firm called Meadow Hill. We provide advocacy and management services to nonprofit trade associations. I lobby for 10 different nonprofit organizations here in the State House. The two that have the most relevance to this committee is the Vermont Vehicle and Automotive Distributors Association. There's 153 of those members. 93 of them are new franchise dealers, new car dealers. Think of Cody Chevrolet or Hayes Ford, the big brands that you know, owned by local businesses. I don't represent the auto manufacturers. They are represented in this building. I also represent the Vermont Retail Grocers Association, which has a convenience and motor fuels division. So on matters related to gasoline and diesel fuel, I provide advocacy and communications there as well. The point, I believe, of my testimony today is to give an update on the Vermont Vehicle Index. That's a publication produced by Meadow Hill Media, which is a site that we use to provide information on transportation and energy issues relevant to Vermonters and Vermont businesses. It's done in conjunction with Vermont Auto Dealers Association and using data from Experian Auto Count and other sources as well. The idea of this is to inform lawmakers, policymakers about decisions that Vermonters make about what vehicles to purchase and inform the conversations about the ongoing transition to a more electrified transportation sector. So this is data from 2024, and the disclaimer is these are vehicles that are registered in Vermont. They may be purchased in Keene, New Hampshire, or Florida, Destin, Florida, but they are in Vermont. They have a Vermont registration and a green plate. These are not renewals. There's over 600,000 vehicles registered in Vermont. These are vehicles that are new and used that are.
here's what I found.
Are registered in Vermont.
Very.
So 113, 462 total vehicles. As you can see, 63% are used. Cars typically have 3 lives: the original owner, second owner, third owner, and 42,000 new vehicles. If you look at the last 4 years, that's about the average banner year in 2021 in terms of new and used vehicle registrations. But the average is about 110 over the last 4 years. That's the rolling average. And as you can see, most of the vehicles registered in Vermont, new and used, are what we call the CUV, SUV, wagon, van, and truck category. We can do a more granular look at this data. And if you took out the CUVs, which are crossover utility vehicles, think of the smaller, more fuel efficient SUVs, and you took out the minivans and just left the cargo vans, SUVs, and took out the wagons as well. SUVs, trucks, and larger vans make up more than 50% of vehicle registrations in Vermont.
Do you have data from before 21? That's just when you started.
That is when we started. So when we started. If you look at new and used vehicle registrations by fuel type, which I think informs some of the conversations that we're having in the Climate Council, where I also serve as a fuel sector representative, and in discussions regarding transportation policy. This is new and used. Predominantly we're gasoline, ethanol. 6% are the battery electric and plug electric gas hybrids. Again, new and used, 6%. And the reason why we group plug-in hybrids and battery electric hybrids is because that's where it matters in terms to regulatory policy. They are gas electric hybrids, which have a battery, as you know, but the primary source of power in those vehicles is the gas engine. The battery and the electric in a traditional gas hybrid increases the miles per gallon, but it is not, in terms of the regulation we're going to talk about in about 5 minutes, they don't count.
PEV versus BEV.
So BEVs and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, again, where there's a plug attached to it, those count in terms of our goals of being zero emission, in terms of and I'll get to the regulation, which I know you know very well, Senator. But when the traditional hybrids, like we think about the gas electric hybrids, that increases the mile per gallon of gasoline, but the primary source of power is still the gas engine. So it's not counted as for our zero emission. Just looking at new vehicle registrations, obviously electric vehicles are much stronger in this category, which represents about 40% of registrations. 12%, we're at 12% now. When you count electric plug-in gas, again with a plug, or the battery electric, pure battery cars. We look at the top 20 vehicles I make. This is 2024, January through December. Toyota, Subaru, Ford, Chevy, Honda, GMC, always at the top of the list every year. Subaru is not the Vermont car, even though it's often called that. It's Toyota, and it has been year after year. Harley Davidson is in the top 20. Had a very strong year in 2024. Don't know the background about that, but we also represent motorcycle sellers as well. Looking purely at the pure electric vehicles and the plug-in PHEVs, and this is your top 20, and these are not the sale. Registered in Vermont, again, could be purchased in Florida or New Jersey, but registered in Vermont, green plates on them, 5,025 vehicles out of the 42,000, I believe, of new vehicle sales. So we're at 12%.
I apologize. I can't see the number for the Toyota one just because Bill Smith is in the corner. What is the number?
How do we get rid of Bill?
Bill, why is Bill doing?
But I can also look it up on, it's on.
Yeah, that is Megan's posted.
Yeah.
Try.
Move the-
Harder.
Splitting four.
I'm not smart enough.
Oh, thank you. You did it.
Oh, thanks, Megan.
674.
So Toyota, the largest seller of overall vehicles, all powertrains, and then also electric vehicles in Vermont. Here's just a month by month look, which I put together because there's discussion about incentives and when they dropped off and where they're going. So I'll go through these slides quickly, but I'm happy to do a deeper dive. When you look at new and used vehicle registrations month by month, you can sort of see the rolling average there. Used vehicles, there's those data points based on powertrain. New vehicles registered in Vermont by month. Gasoline vehicles, new and used. You can see the rolling average there. New being the gray, used being the red. But this is the informative one, which is electric plug-in gas registered vehicles in Vermont. As many of you know, the incentives for battery electric and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles went away in October. And counterintuitively, sales went up. We were at 15%. This is a percentage. This is the new and used numbers. This is just new percentages.
Why is that counterintuitive? Wouldn't you assume that folks would try to get in October and then the decrease we see in November and December is?
We lost the incentives in the first week of October.
But wasn't it, would that kind of make sense? Like people would rush to get it even if they didn't get the incentive, but then you would see the decrease the following months?
I think the statement that people knew that the incentives were running out would normally hold true, except we received notice from the Agency of Transportation that the incentives were running out about 6 days before. It's not like we had advance notice. As anyone that has run a rebate program knows that the more lead time you have, the better you are in terms of helping your sales staff, informing your customers. We had very little lead time on that, and it's not the fault of the AOT. Patrick Murphy was very forthcoming to the AOT about the challenges. There were a number of very attractive lease offers by various manufacturers, because that's usually where the lease offers come from, not the individual dealers, but the manufacturers that certainly propelled sales in late September and October. And but it was, even though I agree with you, that would be the rationale, which is, oh, we got to get it now. I don't think that's what was driving this because there was very little time to even inform the customers that the state rebates were running out. I think a greater factor, and you can see this in November, December, where it was clear there were no rebates. We went back to 12%, but that's our average. That's our rolling average. 12% vehicles registered in Vermont, 2024, were battery electric or plug-in electric hybrid. Again, do incentives help? Absolutely. Do attractive lease offers by the manufacturers who have their own rationale for doing it? That's different per manufacturer. As you know, if you're selling anything, if you've got a new batch coming in, you want to sell the old batch, and sometimes those are discounted if you have an abundance. And I think that in certain manufacturers, that may have been the case.
You have data on the lease versus sales.
I have that. I don't have it on the slide deck, but I'm happy to give you a greater detail on lease versus sale. You can, it's a really cool tool of helping to put in any data points you want and it just spits it out. I'm trying to get the most information that I found interesting, but absolutely. Like some people have said, how many are SUVs mile per gallon? Like we can get into that too, but so there we have it. The reason why this is relevant is here's the rule that's still on the books. The Vermont Advanced Clean Car ACC2 regulation passed by Legislative Committee on Administrative Rules, created by the Agency of Natural Resources, recommended by the Vermont Climate Council in the 2021 Climate Action Plan, which of course was created by the 2020 Global Warming Solutions Act. Here we are. We're at this day. The 2026 model year vehicles, which will be the first to fall under this rule, will roll off the assembly line in Detroit, in Germany, in Japan, in South Korea, sometime between April and August, be delivered to the United States or to Vermont sometime between July and July of next year, be the first to have to meet the ACC2 requirements. So we're at 12% now, 2025. If we continue our 2% climb every year, 2 or 3%, we'll be at 14%. It's a far cry from where ACC2 requires manufacturers to be. I don't represent the manufacturers, I represent the dealers. Dealers are all in on EVs as long as that's what the consumers want to buy, that they can provide that vehicle. They have made significant investments in electric vehicle charging systems because you can't sell an EV unless you have a charger at your facility. Either the manufacturer requires it or just common sense requires it. Can't sell a vehicle and drive it off the lot if it's not charged. We're not going to make it. Even worse on the truck side. I also represent truck dealers. So remember, we also passed in 2022 the Vermont Advanced Clean Truck Regulation. This is everything from Class 2B all the way up to Class 8. Think of a Class 2B as being Class 8 being a 18-wheeler, a cement truck. Class 2B being like a Ford F-250, a Chevy Silverado. Don't have to be work trucks. You can buy one of these and just be a pleasure car, but they're typically work trucks because they have the torque and they can haul equipment. So that is a different scale. We only have to be at 50% by the end of the decade, not 68% on cars. However, we're not there. These vehicles aren't available. And in states like Oregon, some of the large manufacturers are already, in order to comply, lowering their allocation. And that is what we think will happen here should these mandates or the enforcement penalties not be addressed. So if this legislature, or however it comes about, President Trump did not rescind California's right to impose a clean car regulation or the other states to follow California's lead.
Yet.
It is still very much on the books. California has permission under the 1970 Clean Air Act to regulate tailpipe emissions. They have received permission from former President Biden to include removing the tailpipe altogether and requiring by 2035 that manufacturers only deliver new cars that are battery electric plug-in electric vehicles. Vermont is one of 10, Vermont, Washington, D.C., 10 other states have followed suit. So we are under the same type of requirements. Now, there's multiple ways to comply. And we know this because the auto manufacturers have told us, and we have written documentation that shows this, which is they can comply one of three ways. The first way is to simply, if you're going to deliver 100 vehicles to a Vermont car lot in model year 2026, 35 are battery electric and 65 are combustion. And if they don't sell, that's on the dealer. That's on the Vermont business for not being able to sell. They could lower the allocation. Remember, it's a percentage, not a number. So rather than getting 100 vehicles, they get 50 vehicles, you get 13 or 14 battery electric and 30 gas vehicles, meaning lower the volume, lower the choice. The third way they can comply is to buy credits, purchase credits from manufacturers of vehicle manufacturers that produce more electric vehicles than gas powered vehicles. So they are an abundance of credits. They're the plus side. Who owns those? Elon Musk. It's unlikely that these manufacturers want to pay Mr. Musk and Tesla money for these credits. So they are looking at reducing our allocations, reducing choice for Vermont consumers when it comes to gas-powered vehicles. But remember, this is not a requirement. It's not a mandate on Vermonters to buy an electric vehicle. It's not even a mandate on Cody and Rule and Hayes and the rest of the car dealers here to sell them. It's a mandate on the manufacturer to deliver them. So in other words, if you are a car dealer in White River Junction and your customer does not want to buy the electric vehicle, they might find more choice, the right trim, the right color, cross the river in Lebanon and buy a gas vehicle here, bring it here, put a green plate on it, register it. And that's like most likely scenario what will happen.
Isn't there a fourth way to comply, and that is by over complying in one of the other states? Isn't it on the manufacturer totally, not on per state percentage?
No, each state has a different, my understanding, Senator Birchwood, that each state has a different, you're based on your prior year sales. So the 35% number is based on what you've sold in that state. There isn't a fourth way to comply though. You're correct. It's simply to pay the fee. The fee is up to $26,000 per vehicle. Doesn't have to be 26,000. That's the maximum that is set by the California Air Resources Board for a manufacturer that does not comply, cannot deliver to Vermont 35% of the vehicles that they supply to the state. It's not per dealer, by the way. So there's 12 Ford dealers. It's total number of Fords, or total number of Nissan sold. $26,000. That's the penalty.
The manufacturer pays. I think it's
Or maybe it was, we don't know.
Well, they pay the fee.
But we don't know. It's not 26,000.
Right. Could be $1.
Right.
A lot of uncertainty here. A lot of concern by local businesses that sell these cars about what they're going to be able to sell in 2026. Uncertainty over what's happening in the White House, what's happening in California, the court case that may ensue between those two political vehements, and then how Vermont reacts to that decision. So these are the things that are of concern for this industry, for the Vermont Vehicle and Auto Distributors Association, as well as the truck dealers. Car, we're going to get 35%. We are. We're going towards a more electrified transportation future. That is not in question. The investments that have been made in these vehicles assure us that we are going to get there. We are just not going to get there in the speed in which the regulation requires. And that's disappointing to some, for sure. But that's the reality that we have right now, as this regulation is just steps away from being enforced. On the truck side, I don't know when we get there. You can't build a truck that, think of a propane truck. You cannot put a battery on a propane truck. It's fireproof. Or a heating oil truck. Very difficult to drive to rural areas of Vermont in an 18-wheeler to pick up loads of milk and then have that truck be down for 8 hours so it can charge, or to find a charger in the rural areas where the logs and the milk are. Our agricultural economy runs on diesel trucks. And if they have to be electric, I'm not sure that part of our economy will function properly. That's the concern. Thank you for the time.
Thanks. Any questions?
We have that in here somewhere.
I
just have to
pick it up from Tony.
Okay.
You will have it too.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't necessarily have a question about your presentation. I appreciate the chair inviting you to come since you represent a large constituency that this committee oversees. While I'm not going to argue with you about some of the points you've made, I want to talk about something that I think we have more agreement on, which is it feels like the pay scale for folks who are providing work at dealerships, at local auto body repair shops. The cost of improving your vehicle is both very high on the consumer. It doesn't seem to be bearing out with auto body technicians making, amazing livings. So I'm not sure where the money is going, but we seem to be spending a lot of money on maintaining our vehicles in the state of Vermont to a degree that is becoming unaffordable. And I'm wondering if the dealers have a position on that, if you have thoughts on that, or if there's another advocacy organization that would be the correct person to have that conversation with. Because anytime I try to take my car to do something, I feel like I'm paying my college tuition all over again. And that is unaffordable for the average person.
I understand that sentiment completely, Senator White. The concern for the concern that I've heard repeated often in multiple sectors that I represent that deal with the trades, which is the lack of skilled trade people is driving up these costs. Now, you are going to be very successful if you have an electrician's license, a plumber's license, a commercial driver's license, a gas oil tech license, a mechanic's license, better yet, a mechanic's license with an EV certification. There are fewer and fewer of those people that we have. So for us, yes, I agree. The prices of a plumber, an electrician, and a mechanic costs, they've all gone up. And that's a direct, my opinion, a direct correlation to the lack of skilled trade people available to hire.
Do you see any solutions that your organizations would recommend to the legislature to help resolve this? Or are you open to that conversation?
I'm open to that conversation, but big picture, I mean, this is getting far afield, so please cut me off. But big picture, whether I'm talking to the Greater Berlin Industrial Corporation or South Berlin Business Association, they all say the same thing. Can't hire people because can't afford houses here.
Oh, okay.
Housing is generally the response to how we can figure out how to get more young people in the trades.
So you wouldn't say that it has to do with insurance and rates being paid or anything like that. It's just not enough bodies to do the job. So it's highly competitive because there are states that have much lower costs when it comes to how much you pay at your mechanic, or how much you pay at your dealership. So I'm wondering if you're open to brainstorming maybe offline at some point, I'd love to think through ways that this committee, we're not going to do anything on housing, unfortunately, I don't think, unless we've added a charge.
You could live in your
Mobile home.
We could live in our RVs. Those are on wheels. But if you think of anything like that, I'd be really open to working with you because I appreciate the workforce that you represent. And I think they're often underpaid, but it doesn't seem like people aren't paying a lower amount. They're not unskilled labor. The money is going somewhere.
And if I may, Senator White, it's also, because it does relate to transportation, it's electricians.
Mm-hmm.
We need electricians to install electric car chargers and electric heat pumps. And as much money as you may be available in incentives until we have that sector more robust. It's going to be challenging to meet many of our greenhouse gas reduction goals. So I agree with you on that.
I'm ready for solutions.
Thank you. Thank you. Next.
I'm next. I'll be next.
Got it. You're on the schedule, man.
Ah,
And you're up on the screen.
oh, uh-oh. Up on the screen. Oh, yeah. Looking for my. Did that come up yet? Am I sharing with you?
Share through Zoom.
Wow, yeah, 4 for
Oh, no. Okay. Great. And then action, then I can jump around. I want to thank Megan in particular. I'm not the highest tech guy in the world, and she's been very helpful to me.
It's pretty good.
If you can help me, she's very good. Members of the committee, except for one member, you're all new to this committee, but I know you're not new to the issues. In fact, particularly the 4 people here. Obviously, former Representative Gren, Senator and former Representative Westman, many years in the House Transportation Committee there. Senator White, kind of almost a shadow transportation member last session. I recall you in this committee quite a bit. So I'm glad you've gotten to where it seemed like you wanted to be in your morning committee. Okay, good.
Did you give us your name?
So, apologize, Mr. Chairman. William Smith, Bill Smith. I'm an attorney in Northfield, and I also am a lobbyist for the Vermont Truck and Bus Association. This committee would be its primary committee of reference in the Senate. In here frequently on everything from a miscellaneous DMV bill to towing to when there's a fuels tax increase proposed, take an interest in that. Although historically we've been generally supportive of that type of increase if it makes sense with what the government needs to do, which is often at odds with our other state associations that are out of state. The trucking industry in different states are a bit more aggressive about that issue. But who are these folks and who are my members? Truck and Bus has been around since the late 40s, early 50s. Here's my membership list and everything. 259 member companies in Vermont, of which Smith law office of William Smith is one of them. I'm the only attorney in the directory if you want to look at it. But everything from hauling dairy products to market to hauling sand to every town in the state of Vermont to what they call contract carriers or less than truckload carriers or contract carriers and busing industry. We have both school bus companies as well as charter coach type companies that are members. Our president, starting last year, was Stacy Emerson from Student Transport of Vermont in Williamstown. They contract with our schools to haul students to and from school and events all around the state. And so our members have been do pay competitive wages. They have quite a few jobs in the state of Vermont. If you look at this, what comes to your house or your business is a lot. 85% of the communities in the state are 100% trucking service and things coming into and out of their communities. So you need trucks, you need deliveries, your business needs to haul something, whether it's milk or salt or whatever it is. It's probably one of my members doing it. As Senator White talked about wages in these industries, this information comes from what's called ATRI, American Transportation Research Institute. You might see that there. They are the research component of the American Trucking Association. Vermont Truck and Bus Association is the Vermont chapter, if you will, of American Trucking Association. You don't have to be a member of ATA if you're a VTBA member. It is a bit more expensive to be a member of the National Association, but they do provide us with their research on the trucking industry, and they can drill down to the statewide level as opposed to just a national picture. If you look at big issues this year, obviously, is delivering a cleaner tomorrow. Surprisingly, frankly, low number of Vermont commercial trucks that have the 2010 and later technology, which the 58%, that means 42% are older than 2010. What's up with that? In 2010, thereabouts, the federal government created a lot of emission standards that on manufacturers that meant that those trucks are more expensive and more complicated to maintain and to run. And so some businesses where it worked for them, kept those older trucks and are still running them. Now, that's not the end of the world, in the sense that there's a reason that that works. And eventually those folks will, I mean, trucks don't last forever. They are something that you need to replace eventually. And what are they going to replace them with? That's what, Mr. Cota was starting to touch on a bit, there with our advanced clean truck rule that Vermont is part of. If you look at, I'm sure I can find them on here, but I'll try. Share that document, handouts, committee. I'm not there. Okay.
Well, we're in this minute.
Yeah.
That was the House committee.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, did you? You got them on our.
Yeah, you have one in the Senate. You already had the House.
Oh, yeah,
Committees.
switch the. We know you know how to get to that.
There you go.
And then Friday.
And it's Friday. Here we go. So let's take a look at, so what are the actual, here's the Vermont report on the rules, as it relates to trucks. And again, Matt very well laid out the line of delineation here is like a 3/4 ton truck and up. So, you know, every delivery truck, every contractor's truck, every dump truck you see in Vermont is on this list. So, in this current upcoming model year, 10% of those or 13%, depending on where you're at, the size of your vehicle is going to have to be, they're going to want to see that percentage sold in Vermont. And our members are the ones that buy it. If you look at this, there's a definition of it. Emergency vehicles are exempt from this. And it's a sensible list of what's an emergency vehicle. Basically, it's police, fire, EMTs, towing companies. Thank you very much. And also, basically your utilities used for repairing damaged lighting or electrical equipment. So they're specifically, so I know it's going through too quickly, but what shall not apply to a new vehicle that's an emergency vehicle. So Green Mountain Power and the Northfield utility or your local utility is not subject to this. Your fire and rescue and police folks are not subject to this rule, nor do they have to buy them. Why is that? These types of technology for a battery electric vehicle are not there yet when it comes to can they do the job. My member companies are looking at what's out there for products to buy. This is something that many of them have looked at, and they've told me that they are too expensive and they do not have the capability to do the job that's asked of them by that Vermont business. And what do I mean by that? First of all, you could buy a Mercedes or a Volvo or a Freightliner or a Western Star or a Tesla electric truck. Maybe not. Elon Musk promised us 20,000 Tesla trucks on the road by 2020. I think he's at 21 with PepsiCo right now. So he's a little beyond that, but he's not the real driver of all that. What's driving us is the attempt to find a technology that, among other things, meets this California requirement. So the CARB rules, the California rules are driving a lot of this, no pun intended, in bigger states. And Vermont's this little blip on their sales market, whether you're buying a Mack truck or a Freightliner or a Western Star or an International, all those big trucks that brands that are some of Matt's membership are part of that. My members are the ones who have to buy this. They have to make up that 10%, but will they? The way we're looking at it right now, frankly, to the bottom is no, we're not going to do it. It's not because we don't want to do it. It's not because it's because we see that these pieces of equipment we're looking at can't do the job that the industry requires them to do. And so unlike passenger cars, which can do the job that you ask of it, you know, commute to work, take a trip with your family, go to the grocery store, they're capable of doing that. generally speaking, with simple plugins at your house that you can put together for under $1,000, $2,000 at your house, you can have a system that will work for you and your family. When the trucks are not priced and they're price competitive based on substantial subsidies from the government, which is trying to shift that market, has done it quite successfully. But even that has got us to 14%, I think was what Matt's slide showed. The year before, we're starting to kick to 35%. So it's not that my members don't want to comply. It's not that they don't want to be responsible corporate citizens in our state. It's they don't see these things as working for them. When a Class 8 power unit, okay, so you've got a barrel-bench truck up here. So I love this kind of stuff, right? So there's your power unit. Almost any power unit can hook onto that trailer. We tend to leave that trailer at customers' sites. Sometimes for quite a while until they fill it up, and then they call us and we go and pick it up, take it away. It's this we're talking about. This in a diesel form costs about $150,000 brand new. Okay, if you want to go buy those the e-trucks, battery electric trucks, they've got some problems with them. First one is it's over $400,000. I understand Freightliner has one that's called the e-Cascadia, which may be costing less than that. But I haven't really seen that yet. Generally speaking, they're $420,000 to $450,000 versus $150,000. Second thing is they weigh a lot more when they're electric. When they're battery electric, there's a battery tray under here that's as big as this table, and causes this. If this was an electric truck, cause it to weigh 13,000 pounds more than a diesel. This is an 80,000 pound configuration we got here. So if we just took and together this tractor and a trailer, if it's diesel, weighs 40,000 pounds. So it's got about 40,000 pounds of cargo capacity. If we take 13,000, that comes out of that. So now we've got 27,000, 30,000 pounds of cargo capacity. So we lost 25% of our cargo capacity to haul the same stuff, to haul the same commodities for our customers. That means that you're going to need 20% more of these electric trucks on the road to haul the same amount of freight anywhere you are, including the state of Vermont.
Is that based on the weight limit?
The 80,000 pound standard weight limit on our highways. Now, obviously, we won't be talking about municipal weight limits today, I hope, but we can get into that if you want me to. Historically, we've had some issues there and we're working on it. So the reason the trucks are on the road is because we've all asked them to be. Bring my widgets to Northfield, please. And I order it online, and it's a wonderful thing, and it shows up at my doorstep, and it comes on maybe a UPS truck, maybe a Bella-Benz truck, maybe a US Postal Service truck, and then it gets delivered to my house. And we don't think much about how it got there, but as we saw on that previous screen, just about everything in the state comes with the truck. So our members, I wanted you to know where they are looking at this. They do take it very seriously. We met with the ANR staff in 2022 when they were putting the rules together initially. We gave them feedback about this, and frankly, in the last 2.5 years, I haven't seen much out there in the world that would allow us to comply with the rules as they're coming forward to us. So why does that worry my members more than I've ever heard them worried about anything else in the 20 years I've been representing them? It's because it could well mean the significant restriction of essential infrastructure to this industry. And by that, I mean the dealers in Vermont that provide trucks and parts and service to my members are at risk of going away if they can't sell those electric trucks in Vermont in the volumes indicated by the rules. And right now, because of cold logic, business analysis is being made about battery electric heavy trucks, that they can't do the job I want, and they cost 2 or 3 times as much, and they'll haul less than a regular diesel power unit. but they'll go to New Hampshire to buy it. And they'll register it here. They'll go somewhere else to get these things that they need, because a truck, whether it's a town dump truck or it's Barrett Trucking hauling salt in a dump truck to your town, or it's Bellavance Trucking hauling cargo for Green Mountain Coffee Roasters. They're all going to have to replace their truck eventually. And some of them are on a more quick cycle of purchasing, like 5-year turnover is a pretty good one in the industry if you can afford it and you plan to head for it. Most trucking companies in Vermont are not as big as the good people at Bellavance. They're 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 trucks. I think the statewide average is, I think we've got 8 or 9 employees on average in each company. And they might have 2 trucks, and one of them might be 15 years old and one of them is 6 years old, and they're doing the best they can. But when they go to make that significant capital investment in a new essential part of their business, they need something that works, that's cost effective, and that their folks know how to work on. And right now, battery electric doesn't get there. There are some other technologies that I think we're coming along, and we're looking at those. There's Mercedes-Benz is working on hydrogen or fuel cell electric vehicles. An electric motor is great for what you want it to do with a truck. Is that it has near maximum torque from 0, so it can haul stuff. Problem is that battery capacity is drawn down by lots of things that we have in abundance in Vermont: cold weather, hills, stop and go, short haul type stuff. And the more you haul, the heavier it is, but also the weight reduction, the range gets reduced. We're seeing real world examples with the battery electric vehicles that say they really have about 120, 150 mile range. They may say 250, but when you put them out there in the cold and it's a full load, it drops pretty fast. I've had one member, in fact, went over to see Volvo in Sweden. They brought in over to take a look at their trucks and drive them. Said they drive beautifully. But if you're running your 11 hours, you can drive this truck in a day, and you get to the end of 11 hours of driving, and you've had some of that, you spent 3 hours recharging on I-90. You didn't make it to Buffalo like you planned before you stopped for the day. You made it to maybe Rochester, maybe Albany. Those over-the-road truckers, probably that technology doesn't work. It can work, and it is being tested out when you're back to the same location every night and have maybe 100, 150 mile route. Like, think of a garbage truck. I think Casella has a couple of these down in Rutland County where they're generally a flat route, and they're able to come back. They can pick and choose where it goes, and they come back to the same location every night to charge on it. I guess we don't need to get into the big picture. Don't get in the small picture of what do you do if you have an electric truck and you have to have a charger at your business, and you have to get power to it, and you have to bring it back there every night. Does that work for your business? It might. It could. Maybe it works for trash hauling. Maybe it works for some of our local delivery type places. But if you talk to UPS or FedEx, who are also members of Vermont Truck and Bus, they will say, yeah, we can electrify our fleet right now, but we're going to crash your grid. It's going to cost us a lot of money. Yeah, well, that's what they tell me. So I understand you have.
Talk to the grid people.
You have some more.
I saw New England was in here yesterday.
I will take a look at that. That's great that we have this online stuff to go see that. I would love to take a look at that. And we will. So that's the worry, is are we going to be able to get the power to our business, and what's it going to cost us to install that? They probably gave you that number too. And I guess I'm going to kind of wrap up and say, this is the biggest issue for my members this year, is what are we going to do about these regulations that are coming this year? And how is that going to affect our necessary infrastructure, our truck dealers? Because just in conclusion, I remember the dairy industry in Vermont in the 1980s the numbers were going down. Farms were getting bigger. It was just the nature of the business. My family of farming in the Plainfield and Berrytown area and have for a very long time. And they saw you having to go farther away for parts, farther away for warranty work, service work, to purchase a tractor. and equipment. And eventually you went from, oh, go down to Montpelier and pick up, you know, my pistons that got put in the engine of my tractor, to, oh, you need to go to Albany and get that. Oh, you need to go to Syracuse and get that. So we view our dealers as necessary infrastructure for this business. And my fear is that this will be like the dairy industry in the 80s, where you lost that. And what does that mean for the businesses that rely on them? It's serious. It's not, it's worrisome. So thank you all for listening to me.
Senator White has a question.
Absolutely.
And thank you so much for your presentation, and I appreciate you including chapter 40 and some of the rules in
Yep.
here. I'm intrigued to hear that the number one issue for your association is removing environmental regulations. That's too bad to hear, because I think it kind of smacks in the face of some of the comments I've heard from constituents, which include really serious concerns about air pollution,
Yes.
especially after what we saw this summer and last summer with air pollution. And we know that the largest contributor to our air pollution in the United States is our heavy duty vehicles. So I'm surprised to hear that reducing those protections kind of number one on your list when it's so concerning in the other direction for folks. But I did have a question about your numbers, because you're telling us that the reason we can't move to the electric vehicles is because of their weights. And we're talking about 6-axle vehicles, am I correct?
4 or 5.
Oh, okay, so you're,
That's a 5-axle vehicle,
okay, so you're not talking about 6, you're talking about 4 to 5.
right? Well, there could also be 6, depending on what your configuration is. And what you're hauling. But yeah,
I was just looking, at what our, that would be concerning to me if we weren't able to do that. So I pulled it up and was like, what are we talking about for weight limits on these? And when even the vehicle you mentioned, the Mercedes, the e-Atron or whatever it is, Atros, we're looking at well under regulation size for weight. So I guess that's confusing.
okay,
to
I'm
me.
trying to understand what you,
They're about 40 tons.
40 tons is 80,000 pounds.
Yeah, so what I'm confused about is
That would be
if
the
you're looking at
combined.
a 6-axle, you could easily do that.
You could run 90,000 or 99,000, perhaps, depending on what you're hauling and the configuration of your axles in Vermont. Now, what I mean by that is, it doesn't matter so much what the total overall number is. The key there is that we're adding a lot of weight in this power unit. And it's the overall weight of this that counts when it comes to the regulations.
So are you saying that your members can't buy vehicles to be under that weight to carry the amount that they need? Is that your point?
I'm saying these electric vehicles, you can't buy them that weigh the same as a diesel.
He's also saying there's less capacity cargo because you're starting at a higher number with the weight of the truck.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm understanding now. Okay,
So
so,
can
okay.
I respond to the characterization you made about we don't want to have a clean environment? It's not that we don't agree with that. I don't agree with that statement. I think that it comes down to what are we being asked to do to contribute to a cleaner environment? All right, now since 1980, this industry has reduced the particulate matter emissions out of their tailpipes or stacks, if you will, by over 90%. So and that's been driven largely by the requirements of the federal government on manufacturers. Okay, so is the electric vehicle mandate a federal requirement on manufacturers? Yes, it is. But what we're seeing that unlike in 2010, when you went to cleaner emissions and more complicated emissions protocols and machinery on your truck to get to the cleaner standard that manufacturers had, it cost a little bit more. I'm talking $15,000 more, not $250,000 more. It did the job and it would still haul the same amount and still have the same ability to maintain it and availability and range that the older trucks did. So it's not that they want a less clean environment, Senator. It's that they look at this and they say, this machine you want us to purchase for our business can't do the job that we need it to do. If I tried to hook our Volvo wagon up to my boat in the summertime, it's not going to haul it as well as my hybrid F-150 does. It's just not right for the job. But it's not about my choices for, recreation in the summertime. These are businesses that provide this essential service to the people of the state of Vermont. And they're telling me I can't afford these products, and even if I could, they don't do the job that it needs to do. That's all they're saying. It's not a judgment call about we don't want a cleaner environment or we don't like government regulating
Oh,
the manufacturers. It's that they're not there yet. They're not there yet. And that's the only thing they're saying to me. But they also see that there's, again, they're dealers who are business partners with them that they have worked with for decades, most of these companies. You know, if you want to go buy a Mack truck, you know just where to get it because that's where you got it for the last 30 years and your mom and dad before you. And they have business relationships with people that are Mack CODIS members, that they're scared that Mack CODIS members aren't going to exist in Vermont in 5 years. That's where they're coming from. It's not about, you know, a choice to be made for the environment. It's about, I can't afford this. And and that's exactly the classic discussions that have been had in this committee over the last couple of decades that I've seen, where it's the people that need a new car the most that can't afford it. You know, so you run around in this old junker, right? That you fix up the best you can, and you know it's not good for the environment, but I can't afford it. I mean, that's like, you know, when I was in college, I had a 1974 Mercury Montego. You know, it was a great car, it cost me $500, but it got 8 miles a gallon. It was a rust bucket, but I couldn't afford anything else. So, I'm sorry, Senator.
no, yeah, I'm really enjoying this back and forth. I think my only follow-up to that would be, I guess I disagree with the impossibility piece. I had an incredible experience going to SEMA this last year and seeing where the industry is going and how excited they actually are to be held to a standard with these regulations so that it's innovating the industry and actually moving us forward in a quick pace. Because I mean, trucking industry really didn't fully exist in the way we know it now until the 80s. So the idea that it's exactly the way we need to do it forever and always doesn't really make sense to me.
Right.
But I did want to ask, kind of going back to the first statement I made, do you have any recommendations to address air pollution and noise pollution, which is a main concern that I hear from my constituents, and they feel like it's the trucking industry to blame. So what would you recommend to me as a legislature to say back to those constituents, or solutions you would have to reducing air pollution and noise pollution?
Okay, so first thing is, again, air pollution is what this is designed, the regulations are designed to do. I would go back to our manufacturers and say, and ask them, what have we got coming down the pike in this regard for these types of vehicles? What's gonna solve this? Because I'm not seeing it. When I go to the Mercedes-Benz website or the Volvo Heavy Trucks website, I see a lot of discussion, a lot of development going on, but I don't see where they can sell my members a truck that will go 500 miles on a charge that costs under $200,000 for that. That's a unicorn. And so maybe we're going to look back on this in 15 years and say, yeah, that was like VHS tapes. That was a good idea, but it was ended up being the wrong direction because technology is going to change. We don't know what it's going to be. It could be hydrogen and fuel cells. It could, but we've also done on the national level with the California level with the regulations there is we've sort of hitched our wagon to battery electric vehicles to be zero emission vehicles. And I think that I would like to see these industries be doing something instead of battery electric. There's a lot of issues with batteries that are not good for the environment. They're not good for, labor. They're not good for transportation, but that's all stuff that's happening in Congo, in Australia, in China, that doesn't hurt us in Vermont. So it feels like that industry, if you look at the entire stream of that commerce of how that battery pack got from, lithium in the Congo to.
Are you talking about cobalt? Is that kind of what you're going?
Cobalt and lithium, all these really nasty things that we're going to run out of in 20 years anyway.
So I guess, so just so I understand your
So-
answer, your point, when I
Yeah.
talk to my constituents and they
Yeah,
say, hey,
okay.
what did the truckers say?
Okay.
In response to reducing noise and air pollution, your response would be, hey, in the Congo where we get battery powered trucks,
No.
they.
No,
okay, yeah, what would you-
I went on a tangent that I shouldn't have gone on. I apologize. So I want to answer your question, Senator.
Yeah.
First one is air quality is. We've gotten to a point where we're over 90% less than we were 40 years ago in our emissions. If the federal government is able to drive that technology further, that could be a way to do it. As long as what people are producing is something that can do the job. This thing.
Okay,
So that technology is both right. It has to be cleaner and it has to do the job for which it's intended for. And unlike the private car sector, I'm not seeing a whole lot of incentives coming out saying, hey, we'll buy down that cost of that tractor unit for you. Business. There's policy questions around there beyond me about whether you should be subsidizing businesses and their choices, and I agree with that. The second thing is, what are we doing? I don't think Vermont can do this a great big change for air quality without our manufacturers, because we don't make these things in Vermont. We just buy them and use them. Second thing, the noise issue.
yes,
Okay, so when I'm here, noise issues always comes down to what is called anecdotally Jake brakes. It's an engine braking system. The most often used one is a company called Jacobs. That's why it's a Jake brake. Jacobs manufacturer, Jacobs Industries, I think is the name of it, right? So they're on a lot of trucks. Older ones that aren't maintained properly can make a racket.
yeah,
Newer ones, as in the last 20 years or and less, are quieter and more effective, and are probably not the ones your constituents are hearing coming down the hill in town at 5 a.m.
agreed.
Right? The questions there would be, what does your town or the state have for noise ordinances? Are law enforcement willing to enforce it? They're gonna pull over that truck coming through town that's too loud at 6 a.m.
I hope so.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Pull over. Let's have a conversation and let's find out, instead of saying it's this industry needs to do something, it's like, let's find out where that issue is. Let's get on that, because I don't want to, if you called me up and said, hey, so-and-so is one of your members in Bethel and they're making a lot of noise coming into town, call me.
Okay, great.
Have them call me, have them call Joe Scully at BTVA, and we'll get a whole, if they're a member, we'll figure out what's going on and talk to them. My guess generally is we're not all the trucking industry, we're just the ones that apparently by most of the rules. You can ask them if that's true or not. They'll tell you that we're the ones that they don't have problems with, because we work cooperatively with our enforcement partners across the road over there at DMV quite a lot. So I would say, let's enforce that.
Great.
Let's figure out what we can do about it. Yeah, have them home.
Okay, great. So it sounds like, if I understand your answer now,
Yep.
what you're saying is that, hey, don't worry about the air pollution thing. Or like, don't be as concerned about it, because we've really made some big strides. We've reduced it 90%.
Mhm.
And then you're also telling me that the majority of Jake brake situations that are very loud, that I'm getting the phone calls about, that the people in Springfield are emailing me left, right, and center about, that's actually probably an out-of-state company that you're not familiar with.
If
And
it's in the
that they're-
Springfield area, I think I'm familiar with.
Okay, so then I will follow up with you afterwards, because certainly hearing a lot from people on this, and it would be
Sure.
so great to have a partner and a leader on this where we can find solutions that we all agree on.
And I might even get a new member out of it.
Let's do
You
it.
know, that's how I look at it.
And then can I just ask one other question?
Yes.
So I'm also deeply concerned about where our trucks are driving and where they end up. Because they have incorrect GPS information,
Yeah.
either due to the software that they are using or like literally Google Maps.
Not these.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if you have thoughts on how we can address the bad data that these software companies are using,
Right.
so that we don't have my neighbor having a giant truck come to their front door when they live on a dirt road up a hill. Like that's, how do we address that? Can we
Right.
address that on the state level?
I have some answers for that.
Yay.
Okay, it's, first of all, our data that goes out there to those systems that is not complete and is not provided in a way that can be used by those technologies that map things. I think in other states it is possible
Yeah.
to upload like, hey, this road is only a 24,000 pound road, right? Most of our states in Vermont are class 2, 3 roads that are 24,000 pound roads, right? So this truck can't go on any of those roads without a town permit.
Yes.
I thought we weren't gonna talk about this, so
Oh,
let's
sorry.
do it. Okay, so let's do it. Okay, so there, I have hopes that there may be a way to bring together that information that our municipalities have about what roads are appropriate for a truck to be on without oversight, or at least with and what roads are appropriate, so at least like the town knows they're there. Right. So is there a way to get that information into a system that can be used as like on your phone? Why not? I mean, your GPS system certainly could do that. Is there a way to do it as quick as like, here's a map, what's the weight limit on that road? Oh, 24,000, can't go there. Show me all roads in Vermont that are open, that are 80,000 pound or above. You would think that would be easy.
Yeah.
I think we need to get Meta and our municipalities and DMV together so that we can all know what those roads are. Why do I include DMV in that? Because they have an electronic permitting system. They have an online system that's coming online that will have, I'm told, a stub so that we can get municipalities to feed their information in regarding what roads need a 24,000 pound permit. Let the towns make a decision about whether it's appropriate for that truck or that trucking company to run on those roads that year. I would love that.
I wanna
You
work
know why I would love that? Because my members go to every town in the state of Vermont. One of my members, a very good company called Barrett Trucking, in South Burlington, Joe Barrett runs his family's company. They're the ones that deliver salt to just about every town in the state. They have a matrix and a phone number list and emails for every road foreman in the state of Vermont that they generally share with people if they just want to have it. I can't speak out of turn for Joe. I don't know if they're still sharing that as readily, but I think they might. And I think that that's the kind of information that needs to get into the system,
Yes.
both for permitting, because if you're on that road without a permit and you get a ticket,
That's no fun.
it's a big one. I know the folks that have been in transportation before have kind of got wide-eyed and they saw, oh, that's a $7,000 moving violation.
Yeah, your members don't want it. Our people, they don't want to be on the road.
We would love to be
Let's
in
talk
the
about
right and have the information shared with the towns. And if you're doing that as part of a bigger GPS type system for someone that just coming into Vermont and just coming out of Canada with a load of 2x6s. You don't want them going over the notch and stow. They'll do that because the phone tells them to go there. Why does it tell them to go there? Because it doesn't know that you can't. And the reason it doesn't know it can't is because every town in the state of Vermont has a little different regulation on the route, and they may or may not be letting you know that. That's been driving me crazy for 20 years. So
Well, let's work on it.
I'm with you, Senator.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm in the building 3 or 4 days a week. Yeah. And you know how to reach me. Happy to talk about anything. And if you have any other issues that come up with your constituents, I am an open door and happy to facilitate a solution.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
sir.
And that's all we have for today.